You see, one of the most painful realizations in life, and yet one of the most liberating, is this: no one is coming to save you. No one is coming to fix it. No one is coming to lift you out of the mess, heal the brokenness, or hand you the perfect life you dream about. And that may sound harsh at first, it may even sound unfair. But allow me to tell you this: when you truly absorb that truth, not just with your mind but with your heart, it becomes the first step toward real freedom. Dies is because until you take a radical responsibility for your life, your healing, your choices, and even your pain, you will always be waiting for the perfect time, the perfect person, the perfect opportunity. But life doesn't wait, life keeps moving. And the longer you delay owning your story, the more your story begins to own you. You see, we've been conditioned to believe that someone else has the answer, that somewhere out there, someone will come and take away the pain, someone will come and tell us what to do. Maybe it's a person, maybe a system, maybe even a miracle. But real life doesn't operate like that. Yes, people can support you, they can walk beside you, but no one can walk for you, not your parents. Not your partner, not even God will do for you what you refuse to do for yourself. Responsibility is not a punishment, it's a not invitation. It's the moment where you stop pointing outward and start looking inward, where you stop saying, "Why me?" and begin asking, "What now?" And that question, "What now?" is where transformation begins. Because you can't change the past, you can't always control what happens to you, but you can always choose what you do next. But you can always choose what you do next. There was a time in my life when I believed I had lost everything. My body was broken. My dreams had vanished in a single moment. And for a long time I waited. I waited for someone to rescue me from the darkness I had fallen into. But no one came. And do you know what I learned in that silence? That the only person who could lift me out of that place was Smaim. Dies not the old me, the new me, the me that was yet to be built. And that building began the moment I stopped asking, "When will someone help me?" and started declaring, "I will help myself." That wasn't easy. In fact, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But it was also the most important psychologically. We must understand something profound. The mind responds to responsibility. When you stop making excuses and begin to take ownership, your brain reorganizes itself. Your posture changes. Your voice gets clearer. You no longer feel like a victim of your story. You become the author of it. And that shift, though it happens internally, reflects in every area of your external life. Your relationships change. Your habits change. Even your environment begins to respond to your decision to show up as someone who is awake to their power. Taking responsibility doesn't mean you caused everything that happened to you. Let's be clear. Many things in life are unjust, painful, and out of your control. But responsibility isn't about is blame alleged, it's about response. It's about saying, even if I didn't choose this pain, I choose what I will do with it now. And that choice, my friend, is sacred. That's the moment you reclaim your agency. That's the moment you stop shrinking and start rising. And with every small act, waking up and showing up, doing the work, speaking your truth, you're rewriting the narrative. Not because you're fearless, but because you're mad committed that the world doesn't need perfect people. It needs people who are willing to take responsibility for their imperfection and rise anyway. That's what inspires others. That's what creates change, not waiting for someone else to act, but becoming the kind of person who acts. So I ask you today, gently but firmly, what are you still waiting for? Who are you waiting for? If you're waiting for the right moment, say this is it. If you're waiting for permission, because you don't need it. And if you're waiting for someone to come fix it all, they're not coming but you are here. You have breath in your lungs and a story in your hands. And that means you are capable of beginning again, not because it's easy, but because you are stronger than you think. That the life you want isn't out there waiting to be delivered, it's in here waiting to be built. And the builder is you. We all crave comfort. It's wired into us biologically, psychologically, emotionally. Comfort is predictable, it's warm, it feels safe. And yet, paradoxically, comfort is also the very thing that often stands between who you are and who you could become. People talk about growth like it's some natural, effortless unfolding of your potential. It's not. Growth is violent. It's uncomfortable. It requires sacrifice. You don't grow when life is easy. You grow when you are confronted with difficulty and choose to engage with it instead of escaping it. Now, this is not just motivational fluff, this is psychological reality. Every significant transformation you'll ever undergo will come wrapped in pain. Whether it's the discipline of waking up earlier, confronting your addictions, walking away from something toxic, or sitting with grief, you will meet resistance. And that resistance is a signal not to run, but to stay, to lean in, to go through. Daiza think of discomfort like a crucible, a forge. It burns away what is no longer useful. And what remains, if you allow the fire to do its work, is something refined, something stronger. This is why discomfort is not your enemy, it's your gateway. We live in a world that tells us to avoid discomfort at all costs, distract yourself, medicate it, numb it, outsource it. But here's the thing, every time you avoid discomfort, you reinforce weakness. You train your nervous system to believe that discomfort equals danger, and so you stay small, stuck in patterns that offer relief but not meaning. And then you wonder why your life feels hollow. What if I told you the pain you're avoiding holds the very answers you're searching for? That beyond your fear, your anxiety, your grief, there is a version of you waiting to be born. But it cannot emerge without discomfort. Just as a seed must crack open before it grows, you, too, must be willing to break in order to expand. Philosophically speaking, discomfort is the mechanism by which we come to know ourselves. When everything is easy, there's no reason to reflect. But when you're suffering, truly suffering, you are forced into confrontation with your core beliefs. You ask harder questions: what matters? Who am I without my achievements? What do I stand for when everything around me collapses? These are not questions comfort will ever demand from you. Discomfort does, and that makes it sacred. Jordan Peterson often speaks of voluntary confrontation with chaos. He doesn't romanticize it, he presents it as essential. Because if you don't engage with the difficult voluntarily, it will eventually find you involuntarily. And when that happens, you'll be unprepared. Life will test you. That's not up for debate. The question is whether you will be someone capable of responding when it does. That's where daily discipline comes in. You don't train yourself to be strong when you're already overwhelmed. You train now in small ways by stepping into discomfort regularly. Get up early. Do the thing you're avoiding. Say what needs to be said. Choose courage over ease. Each time you do, you're building a self that can hold the weight of life. You're becoming the kind of person who doesn't break every time things get hard. And let's be honest, most people aren't willing to do that. Most people will give you 100 excuses. They'll blame their past, their parents, their circumstances, and maybe those excuses are even valid. But they're still excuses. At some point, you have to decide, will I continue to use my pain as a reason to stay weak? Or will I use it as fuel to become strong? No one can make that decision for you, and that's what makes it powerful. The choice to embrace discomfort is yours alone. No one sees you when you're doing the hard thing. No one applauds you when you sit through emotional pain instead of numbing it. But those are the moments that define you. One of the greatest lies we believe is that we need to feel ready before we take action. You don't. Readiness is a byproduct of doing hard things. You become ready by showing up. Even when you're scared, especially when you're scared. And over time, something extraordinary happens. You begin to trust yourself, not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. You begin to realize that fear is not a wall, it's a door. And walking through that door is where your life begins. So the next time discomfort rises, and it will, don't turn away from it. If don't numb it, silence it, or negotiate with it. Walk toward it. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because you understand what's on the other side. Vibrance, the life you want, the strength you admire, the peace you're chasing, it all lives on the other side of discomfort. Step through the fire, become who you were meant to be. There's something deeply unsettling about realizing how easily we hand over our autonomy. Often, without even noticing, we give away our sense of direction, our emotional stability, even our identity, because it's easier, because it's convenient, because being dependent feels safe. But psychological safety is not the same thing as psychological freedom. And if you're not careful, dependency, emotional, mental, or even spiritual, can quietly turn into a kind of slavery. This isn't just about relying on others for help. That's human, that's necessary. What I'm talking about is when your entire sense of worth and capability becomes contingent on something external baluster. It could be a person, it could be a system, it could even be a belief you inherited without question. And the longer you allow your strength to come from the outside, the more powerless you become on the inside. This is a hard truth to face because dependence is comfortable. There's a certain seduction in letting someone else carry the weight. When someone else decides for you, you don't have to take the blame. You can hide behind circumstances, behind culture, behind trauma. And while all those things are real, they are not permission to surrender your responsibility for becoming who you are capable of becoming. What most people don't realize is that dependence breeds resentment. The more you lean on others for validation, for direction, for worth, the more you start to resent both them and yourself. Because deep down, your soul knows it was meant to stand upright, to move forward under its own power. You are not meant to be a follower in your own life. This dependency I'm speaking of, it's subtle. It can mask itself as love, loyalty, even humility. But if you are constantly looking outside of yourself to feel okay, then what you have is not love, it's attachment. Not humility, but insecurity. Not loyalty, but fear. And this matters deeply, not just psychologically, but spiritually. Because the more dependent you are, the more you shrink your potential. The less likely you are to take risks, to speak your truth, to endure discomfort and grow. Dependency encourages you to build your life inside a cage and then convince yourself that the bars are there to protect you. This is why I believe that part of maturity, true inner maturity, is realizing that no one else can give you what you refuse to give yourself. Not approval, not purpose, not peace. Those things, if they are going to be real and lasting, must come from within. You must cultivate them. You must build them. Now, that doesn't mean you never accept help. It means you stop expecting rescue. There's a difference. When you expect rescue, you make yourself a victim of life. You wait, you shrink, you coast. But when you decide to build your foundation internally, then help becomes something you receive, not something you rely on. And that distinction changes everything. Look around our culture. We are taught to outsource nearly everything: our happiness to entertainment, our confidence to social media, our opinions to popular narratives. But all this outsourcing leaves us hollow, fragile, easily manipulated. Because when your identity is built on the opinions of others, your life becomes a performance, and that is exhausting. Dice philosophically, this is a question of sovereignty. Who governs you? Who rules your internal world? Because if it's not Vajradite, then you're not free. And the tragedy is you can live an entire life like that, following orders, meeting expectations, blending in, and still never meet past yourself. Mitsa, there's a line by Carl Jung that comes to mind. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you can't do that if you are emotionally handcuffed to someone else's vision of who you should be. Self-respect begins with repentance. When you stop asking others to validate your existence and instead you begin living in a way that validates your own values, your own beliefs, your own path. Of course, this path isn't easy. You will feel alone sometimes. You will doubt yourself. You'll be tempted to go back to the comfort of dependency because independence comes with weight. You have to carry yourself. You have to take responsibility for your failures, not just your victories. But the strength you gain is real. It's not borrowed. It's not conditional. It's, say, yours. Bison, that's the kind of strength the world desperately needs right now. Not loud arrogance, not shallow confidence, but quiet, disciplined, deeply rooted strength that says, I know who I am, and I will not betray that truth just to feel safe. So ask yourself, what am I clinging to that's keeping me small? Who or what have I given power over my life, my choices, my voice? And most importantly, why? Because once you see the chains, you can choose to break them. You are not here to be rescued. You are here to rise on your own feet, with your own voice, and on your own terms. Start now. One of the most overlooked truths about life is this: progress is rarely dramatic, and it's almost never immediate. We're obsessed with breakthroughs, with big wins, with transformations that seem to happen overnight. But that's not how real change works. It's not how strength is built. It's not how identity is forged. Real change happens in the quiet, in the mundane, in the repeated, often unseen, uncelebrated act of choosing not to give up, especially when you have every reason to. You have to learn to keep showing up, not because it's glamorous, not because someone is watching, but because you are. And if you can learn to become the kind of person who shows up for themselves consistently, even when the results aren't obvious, you become nearly unstoppable. There's this psychological principle that I think more people need to understand. Consistency wires belief. Most people think belief fuels consistency, that once you believe in yourself, you'll act. But the truth is, it's often the other way around. It's by taking action despite the doubt, by showing up when you don't feel like it, that you actually teach your brain, I can trust myself. Confidence doesn't come from motivation, it comes from proof. And the only way to generate proof is through repetition, through effort. The mistake people make is that they confuse slow progress with failure. If they don't see results quickly, they assume something's wrong. They assume they're not good enough, or it's not worth trying, or the world is against them. But sometimes the very absence of results is the test, not of your talent, but of your Kwang commitment. Because if the only time you work hard is when things are going well, then you're not committed, you're just comfortable. The question you need to ask is not, when will this get easier? The question is, can I endure the difficulty long enough for it to work? Because that's where most people fall off. not because they're incapable, but because they lack the patience to let their efforts compound. There's a kind of integrity in persistence. It says something about your character, your willingness to invest in something even when no one claps for you. That's how legacies are built, not on passion, but on endurance, not on talent, but on tenacity. And I want to be very clear about something here. I'm not talking about perfection. I'm not talking about grinding yourself into exhaustion or pretending to be invincible. I'm talking about resilience, that psychological capacity to get knocked down and decide to get back up again with your values still intact. That quiet decision to try again and again and again. One of the reasons people don't persist is because they attach their effort to outcomes they can't control,